Hello and welcome to another YouTube video in my YouTube series, A Brief History of Female Artists. In this YouTube series, I like to talk about female artists who have been influential in our art history. And this week I want to talk about feminist artist Judy Chicago. So to start off, I want to give a little bit of background to the political climate in America during the 60s, which is the year that Judy Chicago was active and started off her art career. The early 60s was the starting off point of the second wave of feminism, and civil rights protests were being held all throughout America. The LGBTQ+ community was growing, and in 1963, the Equal Pay Act passed by Congress. There was a growing interest for women's studies at the universities, and this new wave of feminism was characterized by more theory, information, and exposure about female identity. The radical feminists of this time wanted to change the definition of womanhood, and they also wanted to change the places that women in society were forced into. They wanted to give women a right over their own bodies, and they wanted to give them a voice to tell the world their experiences. And so the feminist artists of the 70s and 80s set out to find different ways of representing women in their art and showing the world the female experience. So Judy Chicago was born in 1939, which was the last year of the Great Depression. Her parents always ensured that she grew up with liberal political views, and they educated her of their progressive left-wing politics. So throughout her teens, she studied art at the Art Institute of Chicago, and then she continued on to study art at UCLA, where she graduated in 1964 with a Master in Fine Arts. She started off her artistic career by making paintings that were about the female sexual expression. She never got the attention and recognition from her colleagues in the art world as she thought she deserved, so she started to focus on making sculptures. She made minimalist geometric work that was less representational than her paintings had been, which went down well in the art scene of the 1960s, but Chicago felt as though her original vision was being suppressed. She felt like she was trying to fit into a male-dominated art scene. So during this time, Judy Chicago was known as Judy Jerowitz after she married her first husband. He tragically passed away in a car accident in 1969. The following years, Chicago attempted to come to terms with her feelings of being a woman in a male-dominated field. And much of her work started to become the visual representation of the vulva. She wanted to break free of the male-centered abstract art, and in 1965 she had her first solo exhibition. In 1969, Judy Chicago remarried, but instead of following tradition and taking her husband's last name, she instead renamed herself Judy Chicago. In 1970, Judy Chicago and fellow feminist artist Miriam Shapiro started a women-only art course at California State University. It was called the Feminist Art Program, and they taught how to recognize their own female identities and independence, and created artworks such as installations and performance pieces. And in 1972, they created their piece called Womanhouse. So Womanhouse was an art piece that was created by multiple different feminist artists. It was a collaborative piece, and it consisted of an actual house, a building that you walked through. So as you made your way through the house, you would go into different rooms, and in each room there would be a different art piece created by a different artist, and most of these pieces were performance-based. This is also why there's hardly any pictures of this, because most of the artworks were performative, and there weren't many photographs taken, so a lot of this art piece haven't been preserved, unfortunately. So to give an example of some of the performances that would take place in this piece, one of the performances took place in the kitchen, where they had two actors standing and arguing over the dishes. So one actor represented the male and one actor represented the female, and both of them wore like comically large fake genitals tied around their waist. And they argued about whose turn it was to do the dishes. And they made this they had a very satirical script, like the man was explaining to the woman how, oh, it's a woman's job to do the dishes because your vagina is all round and flat because it takes the shape of a dish, so therefore you should do the dishes. My penis is like a big rocket and it's designed to just shoot things and go into space and stuff. It was exaggerated and absurd, and it was just there to kind of show these ridiculous roles that women were forced into based on, just the fact that they were women, So the centerpiece in Womanhouse was the dollhouse room. It was created by Miriam Shapiro and Sherry Brody. So in the room we find a dollhouse consisting of 6 different rooms, each one critiquing the roles that middle-class women were expected to perform. One of the rooms that I found fairly interesting was the painter's studio, and in this room they had a nude male standing in the room, and at first glance you think that he's the model because he's undressed, but then you think of it even more and he's not kind of posed in the stereotypically submissive way women were often portrayed in paintings. He's showing off that he has confidence and stuff, so then you realize that he's supposed to be the painter who owns this room, and then the fact that he's nude becomes like more of a critique on male artists, because a lot of male artists would often claim that their sexual energy and their libido was kind of linked to their artwork, and even Kandinsky have gone on to say stuff like, an empty canvas is like wrestling a virgin and bending her to my will and stuff like that. So it really wasn't uncommon for artists at this time, male artists at this time, to say stuff like that. So that's kind of a few examples of the stuff they would have in Womanhouse. Obviously they would have like a huge variety of pieces, seeing as they would have different artists doing different rooms. And it was just this really, really interesting collaborative between female artists that I just wanted to mention. But back to talking about artworks made specifically by Judy Chicago. She is most known for her piece called The Dinner Party. It's considered the most immense work made by the feminist art movement during the 70s. It was created in 1979, and it consists of 3 large tables arranged to form a triangle. 39 plates are placed on the tables to represent the 39 female dinner guests, and the tables are marked as from prehistory to Rome, from Christianity to the Reformation, and from American Revolution to the Women's Revolution. The plates placed on the tables are oversized and shaped in the form of either a vulva or a butterfly, and the tables are decorated with embroidered cloths that are representative of the time period of the table. So the idea behind the table settings were to celebrate female art and female craftsmanship, something that have been kind of unacknowledged and unappreciated in the art world. So like porcelain painting and embroidery are crafts that have been... Oh nay! Don't go there! Porcelain painting and embroidery are things that have been created by women all throughout art history, but it has never really been taken it has never really been taken seriously by the art community. On the illuminated floor, 999 names of historically important women are written in handwritten text. Overall, the dinner party received mostly positive reactions, especially from female viewers who might have not have seen any artworks like this before. And Judy Chicago received a lot of fan mail praising her work after its premiere. The piece brought women together, not as just a group of people who had the same body parts, but also as a group of people who shared the same history and shared the same kind of oppression. Later in her art career, Judy Chicago started to talk about the underrepresentation of the female experience in media. She created an art project titled Birth Project, where she, between the years of 1980 to 1985, contacted women all throughout the world to create needlework and painted pieces depicting different aspects of the birth progress. Everything from the painful truth to the mystical. Power Play was another piece made by Chicago, and it was made in the later stage of her career. And in this piece he talks about the manifestation of masculinity in a series of large-scale paintings. Judy Chicago also talked about her experience of being a Jewish woman in a lot of her art pieces, one of them being the Holocaust project, From Darkness to Light. In it, she spent 8 years finding imagery from the Holocaust and presented them in a multimedia presentation. Judy Chicago is currently 85 years old, and this year, 2021, she was included in the National Women's Hall of Fame. So that is a brief history of Judy Chicago. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, I would really like it if you hit the like button and also subscribed. And if you have any tips for other female artists you would like me to make a video about, please leave a comment below. And that is it for this week, and I will hope I see you again next time. Bye.